How dark is too dark?
I see you sick bastards watching Dahmer.
So how dark is too dark?
Where is the line between permissible darkness and downright depravity? Crime podcasts versus slasher films, what makes them different if the subject matter is still human suffering for the purpose of enjoyment? Well, let's explore that. Some things really ought to be addressed when it comes to the glorification of what scary things we indulge in, or even glorify by sharing stories, memes, etc. I saw a meme going around a little bit over a year ago. A Jeffrey Dahmer themed kitchen. Now at face value, that's funny, right? Since he ate people. But at the same time, it's not really funny at all. Since he ate people. I mean, imagine being the parent of one of those victims. Would you think it was funny then? Imagine other humor centered around a child being kidnapped or tortured. That would be sick, right? So then why do we think that kind of humor is alright? No, really. Let's answer it. Well, the very short answer is the overall desensitization to human suffering, which we've embraced.
Oh, Regina, you love dark humor with the skulls and the memes and the such.
Darling, there are differences between glorifying evil versus mocking an evil or acknowledging realities of life and death. I did, after all, have a Memento Mori-themed maternity shoot. Then you've got the Catholics, who are so dark, we will dress up our kids as martyrs with arrows stuck in them or carrying around their heads. The difference with that is that it's still acknowledging the suffering that the saint endured, but more so some of their claim to fame, which ended them in salvation. St. Lawrence was burned alive and is quoted as saying, "I'm well done on this side, turn me over." And the magisterium made him the patron saint of cooks because they're darkly hilarious. You see, acknowledging what someone endured for the sake of the church is honoring them and what led to their martyrdom. So what do you think a Jeffrey Dahmer kitchen is honoring? And that, my loves, is the difference between dark humor and inappropriate humor. Dark humor jokes about something to highlight its evilness in a mocking way. Mel Brooks' "Springtime for H-Name I Can't Say" without YouTube and TikTok flipping out isn't glorifying him. It's mocking him and the evil that he stood for. So it's funny. In contrast, an unfunny thing would be to joke about desecrating the graves of Holocaust victims, or a raunchy joke about another person's body. Dark humor mocks evil, but not the victim of the evil. Dark humor hangs a lantern on life's sometimes sad and unfortunate realities, oftentimes to make them less scary, but it ought not relish in anyone's suffering. An example of this concept, but with a different sort of dehumanization, would be embarrassment versus unaliving. It's like how you're embarrassed about something you said, and instead of hiding it, you make fun of it, a defense mechanism to make it affect you less negatively. But if you were to speak about someone else's embarrassment to gossip, the motivation is completely different. The entertainment goes from innocent to nefarious. This principle can be applied to dark humor versus inappropriate humor, if you still need help navigating the line. With inappropriate humor, there's a type of celebration of evil versus the evil being mocked. Springtime for H-Name isn't celebrating him. It's mocking him and the evil that he embraced. It's funny because he was a jerk and he lost. Goodness is gloating. But when you celebrate crimes against humanity, it's no longer funny. Do you follow? Any celebration or glorification of dehumanization is wrong. Dark humor isn't glorifying the crimes, but rather acknowledging that unfortunate things are part of life and making light of them. Maybe even highlighting what beauty those dark things have to offer. But one ought not try to make evil seem attractive, to somehow relish in it. Which brings us right into the conversation about what sort of media people might want to indulge in when they want a scary thrill. We are called to love our neighbor as ourselves, which means that those who hand out the full-size candy bars obviously love more perfectly than the rest of us. But people really don't seem to grasp this love thy neighbor concept well at all, because if they did, we would all be living very differently, including when it comes to what we watch. You very likely have heard a response to watching porn as, what if that was your daughter? We really ought to apply this same thought pattern to violence in what we watch. Would you relish in watching your son or daughter tortured, chased after, and slain? Likely not, unless of course you're a monster. Now, does this mean that we ought to place our children in each and every role of whichever character we watch? No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that this applies to bodily dignity. The deliberate murder of an innocent person is gravely contrary to the dignity of the human being. Therefore, watching certain things that more or less fantasizes about these sorts of offense against a human person, and this might blow your mind, isn't beneficial to anyone. In fact, it's what has greatly desensitized our culture. We are no longer shocked by human atrocities that occur, because we are used to seeking it out in our entertainment. Then we have parents who think nothing of letting their extremely impressionable children and teens watch such things as Silence of the Lambs. What good comes from something like that? You're only encouraging a morbid type of curiosity at best, but more likely a future abuser at worst, because they've not only been desensitized, but they've been given conflicting information from their parents, their original source of morality. Killing is wrong, kids. Let's go watch this movie about killing. Not the best parenting. So now you may be wondering, well, what about crime shows? So by now you might have noticed that I am a female and therefore must listen to crime podcasts. That's actually a different level, since people tend to have different reasons for watching or listening to true crime things. I know that sounds like a cop-out, but it's true. It's most likely due to the subconscious need to feel prepared so we feel better protected. You know, from people who take their violent fantasies from TV too far. I could go on, but the main point is that a true crime podcast isn't relishing in violence in the same way a gory movie is. And side note, because desensitization to the human person is obviously tied to a lack of ability to love, I tell single people to avoid seeking romantic mates who watch anything violent or pornographic, because they won't be able to offer them the love that they crave. Someone who is desensitized to the value of others is not able to have self-sacrificial loving relationship with others. Are you shocked? Concerning darkness and humor, though, I think there's always been an obvious line when it comes to how violent is too violent in media. But now I've noticed that the lines are much blurrier when it comes to how violent is too violent in humor. It's simple enough to know the line. If it makes light of a sad reality addressing a concept, that ought to be fine. It's when there's specific physical abuse victims involved who would be the butt of the joke that it's no longer funny. A quick way to check: if you wouldn't want your child mocked or harmed in that way, you should probably avoid being entertained by it. I'm Regina Lux with Veritas on the Rocks. Now, ignite the truth and boldly go.